I am a fifth generation San Franciscan. I was born and raised in the city, and so it's been also a pleasure to go back up and down a lot of the streets that I was raised on. My grandfather had a mortuary in the Mission for 25 years, and my cousins had a department store. I don't know if any of you remember Farrah's department store in the Mission or Farrah's shoe store, but it was there for years, and so it's nice to be out and talking to people. My focus as a member of the Board of Supervisors was usually, it was really focused on two things. In part because District 2 allowed me to look at things that were a little more macro because it was not a community of great need, quite truthfully. And so my focus was primarily on job growth and job creation. I wrote and passed San Francisco's first economic plan. I didn't write the economic plan. Wrote the legislation that had the city hire a couple of economists to look at San Francisco and how we would be able to grow jobs in the city, what parts of San Francisco would be good for job growth, what types of industries would be good, what would be clean and safe, and what would put our kids to work. I also really had a focus on families. I'm a mom. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and I was born and raised in the city, as I had mentioned before. And when people say to me, San Francisco is not a city for families, I have to tell you, it kind of takes me off. It's a great city to raise families in. You know, we don't have backyard space, but we have parks and we have libraries and we have, and we're a city. And I think that it's a great place to raise children. And so a lot of my focus as a member of the board too was in trying to increase home ownership opportunities for some of our families, and to try and grant more access just to San Francisco. When I got into office, one of the first things I did was call a meeting of all the principals in District 2. And it was pretty interesting. They were, they were private school, public school, and parochial school principals all in one room. And not everyone showed up. We probably had about 35 people. And the conversations that took place were really interesting because we've always had, we have a focus on our public schools for a very good reason, but 32% of the kids in San Francisco go to private or parochial. And so when we look at our children and how we're going to deal with our children, and when we look at the resources available to us, it's interesting to get the heads of all the schools in one neighborhood in one room and to talk about how Galileo, for example, has a remarkable football field and open space that nobody else really has. And then you have parochial schools that have tiny little indoor basketball gyms. And the ideas that swirled around and the use of space, the shared resources, was something that I think would behoove all of us in the future. But with that, why don't I open it up to you?
Sure.